Hey, it's Rebecca, and you're listening to episode number 1. Today is my first episode, and so I'm going to give you a little behind the scenes as to who I am and where I come from. You are going to follow me from Monreal to Africa to Spain to Vancouver and back to Toronto. I know, crazy. I'm also going to share exactly why I am starting this podcast. All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Well, here we go. This is my very first podcast. I want to start off by saying, if you're anything like me, you've spent your entire life thinking and knowing that you're really, truly made for more. But there's something that's been holding you back for some reason, and you just can't get over that hurdle. This podcast is intended to be a business podcast, but also an inspiration to show you and to teach myself in the process the importance of resilience and how women, especially, are so much stronger than we give ourselves credit for. I'm on a mission to give entrepreneurs, women, moms, basically humans, the tools and the inspiration that they need to successfully achieve their goals and their dreams. I hope that this podcast will be a guiding light when you really need it the most. This is a time in our history when positive affirmation and inspiration, I feel, is more necessary than it has ever been. So I'm going to take you on a journey. I have no idea how this is going to pan out. I'm interviewing some really great women, successful entrepreneurs, change makers, people that have come through difficult times or have encountered obstacles. And I really want to press to find out what were those specific tools that they have used to get them through. Because I really strongly believe this in the idea of community. And I know that we're stronger together. The more that we share our stories, the more that we see that we're all alike. It's so funny. You look at somebody like Beyonce, or you look at somebody like, I don't know, the president of the United States, and you think, wow, maybe that's a bad example, but somebody in power or somebody who's successful, and you think, I could never do that. Like, they obviously have something I don't have. Wrong. This is what I'm here to tell you. And this is what I've started to learn and see for myself. That yes, we all come from different backgrounds. Yes, we all have different life experiences, but it's how you treat the experiences that you have and how you rebound or bounce back or show resilience through those times or pivot when you've had a failure or try again when you fail and then try again. It's how we get through these situations that make us stronger. Now, I want to talk a little bit about business because truly, this is a business podcast because I am extremely passionate about business. It's so funny, growing up, I remember my mother always saying, I wish I'd gone to university for business. I wish I'd taken commerce. And I remember thinking, whatever, for what? She had done political science and then ended up becoming an entrepreneur and running her own businesses. And of course, sure, what did I do? Completely unintentionally and didn't even realize it until after. I went to university in Monreal in Canada and I majored in political science. Like, oh my God, duh, Rebecca. I did a double major. I did English too, so I was slightly different. And here I find myself at the ripe old age of 39 running an interior design business thinking, shoot, why didn't I go to business school? I mean, it doesn't get more, I don't know, is ironic the word? Oh my gosh. I mean, heck, if we could only see into the future, to the future version of ourselves, we would know exactly what to do. The reality is that's not possible. And even if you are someone who is very future driven, you don't know what's in store for yourself. But you can learn from the people. And, there's a famous expression, and oh my goodness, I'm not going to have the right person to quote. It's like, is it Richard Branson, Tony Robbins, somebody, Steve Jobs? One of them said, guys, I promise I will get better at quoting people. This is one of my, there's one of my many flaws is knowing who says something and also knowing what musician sings the song. I am absolutely horrendous. I will know every word of a song and have no idea who is singing it. Anyhow, the quote is, "Success leaves clues." And I really love this because what that says is anyone who's been super successful in their life, whether it's their career or whether it's with their family or whether it's starting a nonprofit or whether it's as an artist, whatever it is, success leaves clues. So we can look to those people who are further ahead on their journey and see what did they do? How did they overcome a similar obstacle? So I truly hope that this podcast can do that. Okay, so here we go. Here's a little bit more about me for those who have no idea who I am and are curious why you should even bother listening to my podcast. I am Rebecca Hay. I live in Toronto, Canada, and I have built a very successful interior design business basically by trial and error. Through listening to podcasts, reading literally every book I can get my hands on when it comes to self-development, when it comes to business tools. And pretty much over the last decade, I've tried it all. I have changed careers and found my way here in a very haphazard way. I'm going to get into that just to give you a little bit of my background, because I think some of you might really resonate with my story, especially those of you who are just graduating from school and have no idea what you want to do with your life. It's okay. I'm an example of that. But I'll circle back to that in a second. But really, I feel like I finally landed in the place I'm meant to be, and I'm finally starting to focus on who I am at my core and what it is that I want to do and how I want to, I guess, give back to the world. So each week on this podcast, I'm going to share experiences, tangible takeaways, how you can change your life and your business and be resilient. So here it goes. So first, me. I'm basically a serial entrepreneur. I grew up in Toronto. I went to a private girls' school. Yeah, I know you're rolling your eyes. Oh my gosh, what does she know? She's had it so easy. But I have to say there's something that comes with that type of privilege, assuming that you are going to be successful, and the pressure that comes with that, especially going to a school that really, honestly, it pushed. And it was an all-girls school, right? So they were really pushing women to compete with men and break that glass ceiling and get through. And they valued math and science, two things that, quite frankly, I hate. And I'm absolutely terrible at. I was the only person in my grade, I think in grade 12, that managed to convince my guidance counselor to let me not take math. I hated it that much. I mean, I'm shocked that they let me do it. So back then we had grade 13, which was also known as OAC. So for those Americans or those millennials, that means we had 5 years of high school, which I'm sure if you're used to 4 years, that sounds like so much. But honestly, it didn't feel like enough. I had no idea what I wanted to do with myself. I was 19 when I graduated from high school, and I truly did not know where I wanted to go to college. I really didn't. I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I always loved teaching. So I'd considered, maybe I should do teacher's college. I love the idea of that ever since I was a kid. I loved theater and acting, my passion, and I thought I was going to be like the world's famous, biggest actress in the world. I love musical theater. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. I looked at doing triple threat programs for music, dance, and singing, but I was a terrible, and still am, terrible dancer. So that scared me. And then I thought, well, maybe I'll just do the thing that everybody does, because, I'll get an undergraduate degree. I'll go, I'll party, I'll have fun, and then I'll figure it out. So that's basically what I did. I figured out which school. I visited the different schools in Canada that I was applying to, and I ultimately picked the one that my very close friend was going to because we had been a few times to stay in Montreal with her brother and his friends and party with them. And if you know me, you know I like a really good party. Like, I'm the party girl. Give me a cocktail, give me a beer, you know, let's sit around the campfire, let's go to the dance club. I don't know, that's not what they even call them, is it? God, I can't even remember the last time I went to the club, a nightclub. Ugh. Anyways, I like to party. So I thought, I'm going to go to McGill. McGill University is right in the heart of Montreal. For those who don't know, Montreal is a really cool city. It's amazing. I can't wait till I can travel there again. Right now, there's no traveling happening in the world. But it was awesome. So we went. It was scary. I came from like a really small high school into this large university where I was just a number and nobody knew my name. And honestly, at the beginning, I thought that's what I wanted. I was like, I just want to be anonymous, you know? So if I'm having a bad day, nobody knows and nobody cares. And at first I really enjoyed that. But then as time passed on, second, third year, I started to fall into a very deep depression. And I was drinking too much alcohol, which now in hindsight, I realize that was probably the primary cause of my depression. But at the time I didn't know it. I was clinging to like my high school friends. They were all making new friends and I really wasn't. I'd stopped getting involved. In the second year, I'd been involved in a theater troupe and we'd done a play and that was amazing. And then third year, that didn't happen. And I just retreated and I retreated. I would sit in my room painting, drinking beers, really awful, like shitty Canadian beers alone. And then my one friend came into my room and said, listen, like, I can see that you're struggling. I know that you're not happy. Like, I want you to know that I see you and I'm here for you. And that was really amazing because like when I look back on it at the time, I felt grateful that she came in, but at the same time, I didn't want to talk about whatever it was I was going through. I was also in a long-term relationship, or not long-term, long-distance relationship. So there was just a lot of things. And that person was far from the right person for me. Anyhow, I feel like I'm getting too deep into this story. Where was I? Oh my God. I had decided to just take off because that's sort of what I did for when I had problems is I would just leave. And I took off and I went to Africa and I did this program. It was called Canadian Field Studies in Africa and it was awesome. It was like my... what's that thing called? Rehab, because there was no alcohol and I didn't know anyone. And it was a small group of like 18 people. And we traveled to Kenya and with our professors, we did courses for the remaining semester of my fourth year at university. And we traveled by old British Army trucks around the countryside based out of Nairobi, and we would travel through. We would sleep in tents. We would study in tents. We would write our exams or our essays by candlelight in tents. And it was awesome. Now, I'll tell you that I did grow up going to summer camps, so sleeping in a tent was not a foreign thing for me. So for me, it was pretty cool. I can see how that sounds a little scary, but like these were nice tents, guys. I mean, I did sleep on the ground in a... Wow, crazy. In a sleeping bag for like 3 months. I don't think I could do that anymore. But it was awesome. And then I came back and I graduated and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I still was thinking teacher's college and I'd also kind of dabbled with the idea of interior design. Long story short, I came back to Toronto. I got a job retail, worked at Lululemon. You know, got to know all these people who were performers because a lot of them were working at Lululemon. They were dancers and they had cool jobs working on cruise ships or they were applying to triple threat programs. And I thought, oh, that's so cool. But I never felt that I could do that because it seemed as though I didn't have the skill set. I didn't believe in myself. And then something else had come up and I made some money. I did a little acting gig at the home show. No, sorry, not the home show. It was the car show downtown. And I got paid at the time was like so much money. I felt, I think it was $8,000, like something unheard of big for me I rollerbladed on stage for like a week during the car show for like, I don't know, a big car company. God, they have money. Anyways. And then I was like, that's it. I'm taking off and going to Spain. I always wanted to go and live in Spain. I took Spanish throughout school. I was very, very strong in Spanish. And I was like, maybe I'll try teaching. and I'll see if it's for me before I applied to teacher's college. Because the idea of going back to school, oh my God, blah, did not want that. So I went to Spain, and in Spain, I did a short TEFL course, and I taught English for 2 years. I lived in the south. I was in Seville. Then I moved to a tiny little town where I got a job, fell in love with a Spaniard, all the things. It was like a movie. And after my sort of 2 years there, I decided, okay, I was ready to come back to Canada. I was tired of living so far away. And I went to Vancouver, and I went to film school because I'm like, teaching's not for me. I'm going to try the acting thing. Let's do this. Yes, this is what I'm made to be. So I go to Vancouver. Oh my God, when I retell this story, it's like, holy cow. I feel like I've lived 9 lives. And I get to Vancouver, and I do an acting program at the Vancouver Film School, and I get an agent, and I start acting. And I got, my biggest claim to fame is I got a small non-speaking part in a TV show with Anne Hesh called Men in Trees. It was set in Alaska, but filmed in Vancouver. Anyways, big deal. But the reality of it was I never got to act. It was constantly auditions. And some of them were cattle calls. Like literally, I remember one audition, I was for a commercial. They brought in 5 of us at a time. We stood in a line on our mark. They said, okay, turn left, turn to the back, turn right, and face forward. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Essentially, they were just looking at what our physical body was to make that call. And I'm like, this is not for me. This is not at all what I had envisioned. And quite frankly, I was working in a restaurant, barely making ends meet, barely making enough to pay my rent, and thought, I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. I'm clearly not passionate enough about acting. So what did I do? I changed careers again, and I went back to school for interior design. And this time I was like late 20s now. So this is almost a decade has passed. And I'm thinking, shoot, my friends or my colleagues that I know back in Toronto are killing it. They've got these big jobs with these firms. And what the frick am I doing? Like, I'm waiting tables. I'm managing a restaurant, a great restaurant. It was amazing. And they have great opportunities, but it wasn't for me. So, in case you're wondering, that restaurant is Earl's. It's a good restaurant. It has great career opportunities. Not to take away from that. But it wasn't for me. And so what I ended up doing was going back to school. God, now when I look at this in hindsight, God help my parents for just going with it. They didn't resist me. I don't even know if I could do that as a parent. Oh my God. I went back to school for interior design. And the interior design program was 1 whole year, 12 months. And it was awesome because I was the oldest person or second oldest person in the class. I was super focused, super diligent. I did my homework. It was a very different school experience from when I was at McGill. And I graduated with whatever would be the equivalent of honors, like top of my class. And that basically set me on the path to where I am today. I came back to Toronto. I got a job working for a high-end designer here in Toronto. I worked for him for 5 years. It was the most amazing experience of my life. I learned so much. And then I decided to go out on my own. Being in interior design for me was a way to be creative, but also have more control over my career. I realized how passionate I am now about business, something I didn't even really realize was in my blood, because I love being creative, but for me, that's not enough. So if anyone out there is a creative like me, and you have these big dreams for your career, I get you. It's not just about creating the art for me. It's about creating the art, but then getting it out to all the people. And how do we get the right team in place? And what are the systems? And I mean, I'm not going to get into this all in this episode because this is a lot of talking. Oh my gosh. But honestly, after I started out on my own, I worked in television. I worked on Property Brothers. I worked on Income Property with Scott McGilvery. And I got a real taste of all the different aspects of the interior design business. And I realized that if I was going to make money in this business, because trust me, it ain't easy. Oh my goodness. Any designers who are listening, you know, it is not easy to make money. It looks super glamorous because you're dealing with expensive fabrics and beautiful furniture. It is hard to make a living. So I decided it was time to figure out how to run a proper, profitable business. And in that process, I grew as a person, I grew as a business owner, and in the last year, it's just completely, my business has changed, and it's been open for 6.5 years. So I guess it's not that long. But all that to say, I'm going to end this episode here because I don't want it to be so ridiculously long. I just wanted everyone to know a bit my backstory and see that I have not followed a straight and narrow path. It has been anything but. And I have to say that in hindsight, I see that I have been rather courageous in that when something didn't work, I went and tried another thing. And maybe some people would call that, what's the word when you're careless or risky? But, when you're young, that's when you should take risks. Like, shoot, I am so glad that I spent my 20s bouncing around, trying out all the different careers that I loved till I could finally land on the one that was right for me. And I think that that's just the beginning of what I want to talk about in this podcast, is how we can go through so many different things, all end up at similar places or different places and be successful. I am a serial entrepreneur. I'm passionate about women, and I really am on a mission to inspire women, designers, decorators, creatives, moms, heck, like even humans, like I said before, to really push through the difficult and learn from each other. And I will definitely be talking about more of my experience and specifically, I can't talk, how I've built my interior design business to the point where, I have 5 people on staff and, really great projects. It's not perfect. I am still learning, and I'm also hoping to learn myself through the exercise of this podcast. So, oh my gosh. I'm also a mom. Oh, I forgot to mention that. That's kind of important because if you're a parent, you know how darn hard it is to work, have a career, grow a business, and have little babies at home. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time of this podcast. It is freaking busy and insane. I'm exhausted all the time. I can't remember the last time I actually had a full night's sleep because one of them inevitably ends up in our bed. It's freaking difficult. So I hear you if you are feeling the same way. And right now I'm homeschooling because the world is on lockdown. So I am trying to homeschool my little boy who's in senior kindergarten and trying to keep my business afloat, start a podcast, and, just do all the things. So if you are a parent and you are searching for more and you know that you can fit it into your life and that there's a way to do it, then you found the right podcast. We're going to figure it out together. I'm really excited to finally be doing this. It's been over a year. I've been wanting to finally record a podcast. So guys, I don't know. Do you subscribe to a podcast? If you subscribe, I'm used to YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. You can check that out. It's mostly design stuff and some business tips. And I'm pretty busy on Instagram. So come follow along on my daily stories. It's Rebecca Hay Designs on Instagram, at Rebecca Hay Designs. But I don't know what the term is for a podcast. I think you can subscribe. And I don't know if you can like it, but I think you can review it. So you don't have to review it yet. I realize it's early, but please feel free to do that because I feel like that's an important element of having a successful podcast. Okay, I'm going to end it there, guys. 22 minutes of me talking. I have one question. I don't think you can comment below. I don't know how this works. But if you can, I would love to hear from you. What are your biggest frustrations? And what is holding you back, in your opinion, in your mind, from reaching for more and growing into that person who you want to be? Let me know, and we'll figure it out together. Okay, stay safe, everybody. I'll see you at the next one.